All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. It's around 9:21 p.m. and it is Wednesday. It's a great day. Yesterday was May 5th. And to let everyone know, yesterday we achieved over 100,000 signatures. In fact, it was interesting. Exactly at 1:29 a.m., we kept going. Someone called Donald T., I don't know if this is the right name, was a 100,000 signature to sign. So it was quite an extraordinary day. Everyone pulled together, and I think we're close to over 100,000, close to 102,000 signatures. In fact, if I go here, we can look at it. Let me stop the screen share. So we'll start with looking at what we have here. Let me start right here. Where is it? We have, oops, the application window is here. Chrome tab, oh, here we are. So here we are on the, by the way, everyone, just to level set, this is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. I'm an MIT PhD, an inventor, a scientist, and a candidate for US Senate. If people go to our website, shivaforsenate.com, you can see that I'm running for US Senate. Our campaign is based on the model of truth, freedom, and health, meaning we have to fight for freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to discourse. Without freedom, we can't have truth. Truth is the basis of us identifying real problems and getting to real solutions. And that's how we get health for our bodies, our infrastructure. And from health, we have the strength to fight for freedom. So that's the core of our campaign. And I can talk more about it as this discussion goes on. Everyone knows that you can support the campaign. By supporting our campaign, you support yourself. We have an extraordinary offer for those who support the campaign. We give you a great book called System and Revolution, which teaches you what is a system and what is revolution. And then we also give you access to a very cool tool called Your Body, Your System, which teaches you how your body is a system. And I'll show you this very quickly, but it's a way to use your own body as a laboratory to understand the principles of all systems. Basically, that you have forces of energy and matter and information in you, and you can identify what is your natural state. And that's what this red dot is, who you are from a system standpoint. The black dot is how you're deviating from your own system basis. And then finally, you can understand how foods, which are inputs into your system, and exercise and other things, can bring you back to who you are. So this is called systems thinking. It sounds pretty simple, but it took me many, many years to consolidate this into a very, very simple form of understanding this. So, and by the way, those of you who have trouble affording 25, pay whatever you can, and we'll sort it out. The goal is really not about the money, it's to really give you the education. All right, so that's that. But the other thing that, as I mentioned when I started this, is we have been running a campaign. We are the ones, the Truth, Freedom, and Health campaign for Shiva for Senate is the one that undertook the FireFauci campaign. Hashtag FireFauci went viral all over the world. And our goal was 100,000 signatures. And you can see right now we have 102,546 signatures. People have signed, a lot of nearly 3,000 medical doctors. But this is what we did last night. So it was a fun time. We got everyone to participate, and it was extraordinary. So we've achieved our goal. I asked people feedback on what they wanted us to do with those signatures. So tomorrow I'll be announcing how we're going to send them to the President of the United States. Obviously, he knows about this. He actually retweeted hashtag FireFauci. But most importantly, what I want to let everyone know, that campaign for FireFauci started with our revolutionary movement. Then you had followers like Robbie Booby Kennedy come afterwards, which we'll talk about him. And we're very critical of him. As we talked about, he is essentially a distraction to this movement. He's attempting to hijack the movement, and we're not going to allow it. But most importantly, I also want to let you know we're honored to have Pastor Broden again, an extraordinary individual, a fighter, an activist. He's also the senior pastor at a great church down in Texas. So we're great to have you here, Pastor Broden. Thank you.
It's good to be back with you again and a part of this movement of freedom and truth and health. It is an essential, I think, movement, and one that can really change the way we see healthcare in America. So I'm excited to be alongside of you.
Thank you. And to summarize, we're running for U.S. Senate, and I'm running against a gentleman by the name of Joe Kennedy. Joe Kennedy is the opponent I'm running against. About 38 years old, went through the private school systems. Kennedy went through the Harvard Law School, has about $51 million inheritance, and he thinks the Senate seat is his. The Kennedys think Massachusetts is theirs. So they do not expect someone like us, someone like me, trying to take that power away from them. And I've also reminded everyone, and this is one of the core principles of our campaign, is that Massachusetts, particularly, more importantly, the longitude and the latitude between MIT and Harvard, if you drew a circle around that, is the center of the deep state, not of the United States, but of the entire world. It is where the global elites aggregate. It is where they get educated. It is where they get trained. It is where they fraternize to figure out how to dominate all of us with power, profit, and control. So it's quite extraordinary that, I ended up here, learned a lot from how they operate, understand their weaknesses. So this campaign for truth, freedom, and health not only scares the obvious establishment, the Kennedys, the Clintons and the Gateses and the Zuckerbergs and the WHO, but more importantly, the deeper establishment, the not so obvious establishment of the Kennedys. And that's what we all need to understand. In Massachusetts, we also need to recognize that this is supposed to be the center of innovation and technology and high tech and the Renaissance. When I came here in 1981, my physics teacher encouraged me to go to Boston. And you know what she said, Pastor Broden? She said, Boston is the Athens of the world. Mm-hmm. But what I found is it's really the, a deep state debacle of the world. Because what you find here is Massachusetts got an F minus in infrastructure. Not just a B, a C, a D, an F minus, but an F minus. And it got rated by the American Society of Civil Engineers 135 points out of 350 points. Takes a lot to get an F minus. You have to do really bad. And why do I say this? Because concomitant with that, which means in parallel to that, Massachusetts got rated as a D plus, and that's not good either, by the Center for Public Integrity, which means the 10th worst in corruption and the 3rd worst in infrastructure. So let's think about that. Both of those go hand in hand, corruption and infrastructure. Massachusetts also has the highest increase in homelessness, 18%, higher than California. In fact, when I started my campaign, there's a homeless shelter, and some people said, oh, you should go there and speak up. We heard Joe Kennedy's going to go there. Well, we went over there. They wouldn't let us in. It was a private event for him. And he was literally going in there, taking pictures with poor people. This is what the Kennedys do. They're very clever. They think we're all stupid, and then leave. And as he was coming out, I said, hey, Joe, what do you think about the fact Massachusetts has the highest increase in homelessness? And you know what he said? We have it on video. He says, I don't know anything about that. Okay? So this was a photo op. Massachusetts has one of the highest opioid epidemics. And you can go on and on and on. Yet, this is supposed to be a place that I was supposed to revere. And this is brought to you by the Kennedys. That's what the Kennedys bring to you. Michelle, can you bring me that card? So what we're looking at is the lawyer lobbyists basically are destroying the infrastructure, what is supposed to be the Athens of the world. That's what they're doing. And what they've made it, as I said, is a deep state debacle. And if everyone goes to our website, we have these very cool cards. You can see that we distribute thousands of these. And on the left, it has Kennedy, mark here Kennedy. It's likely going to be Kennedy, the Democrat. And it says lawyers and politicians versus a scientist, inventor, and entrepreneur. And I'll put it right there. Crumbling infrastructure versus futurized infrastructure. Corruption and racism versus innovation and real diversity. Debt and income inequality. Jobs and skills-based education. By the way, the average net worth of a Black person in Boston, guess what it is, Dr. Broden, Pastor Broden?
It's probably too shameful to say, but
take a number.
It is $15,000 a year.
No, $8.
$8.
Yeah, and this is in Lewisburg.
You mean their income per hour?
No, it's the net worth. If you took their balance sheet, if you took their assets minus liabilities, that means what do they actually have when they pass?
Wow.
So the average. So if you take my balance sheet, which means everything I own minus all my debts,
okay,
it's $8. Now, in that Boston area, that of a white person, these are the liberal elite. By the way, John Kerry lives in that area. Guess what that is? $250,000. And that is from the Federal Reserve. So meantime, the Kennedys are talking about how they want to help poor people and how we have the worst income inequality in Boston. $8 for a Black person and $250,000 for the Boston Brahmins, which include the Kennedys, which include the Kerrys. That's what we're talking about. So they have no right to even talk about anything. This is the hypocrisy of the deep state Kennedys. That's what they do. They are the racists. They take advantage of black people and minorities and immigrants. They take pictures with them. And if you're not angry with this, well, that's okay. But the movement for truth, freedom, and health.
Are you guys planning a debate at all?
Well, we don't know if they'll debate me. The Republican guy was supposed to have a debate with me. He only has like 100 Twitter followers. This is, again, the deep state establishment is trying to stop me. So I don't even consider him a competitor. He didn't even show up for a debate yesterday. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's 3 candidates then in the race in Massachusetts.
There's 2 Democrats, Malarkey, we call him, and Joe Kennedy. Okay. Who is Bobby Kennedy's nephew. By the way, he's pro-vaccine mandate. His wife runs a organization which is trying to do wellness for poor black people, adding in vaccination. And the other guy, I'm not even going to give him any, he's not even worth mentioning. He can barely talk. Another lawyer. All 3 are lawyers, Pastor Broden. 3 lawyers against an inventor, scientist, entrepreneur, a working class kid. That's what we have.
You are running as an independent or as a Republican?
I was Republican. Last year, 2 years ago, when I ran against Warren, we ran as a Republican. They didn't want me on the ballot. They injected a guy to run against me. This is how Charlie Baker, the Republican governor, did. He was so afraid of me. Instead of embracing me, who represents everything that the Republican Party stands for, meritocracy, bottoms up. What he did was he ran a dope against me, a guy called Jeff Dirty Deal, who photoshopped a picture with Trump. There's 3 hands in the picture. We brought in a forensic scientist. And this guy's social media manager was just found out to be a pedophile charges. Okay? This is the corruption in Massachusetts. And the Kennedys are the center pin of that. In fact, the Republican governor, Bill Weld, former governor who ran against Trump, has endorsed Joe Kennedy over me. That's the situation. Okay?
When is the primary?
September 1st.
September 1st. Okay.
September 1st. So when you look at this card, it's a very simple card. By the way, we don't waste people's money. We got this down to less than half a penny. Okay. And you can see what we're saying is it's censorship and control versus 1A, which is First Amendment, 2A, and digital rights for all. Pollution, poison, and drugs versus clean air, clean water, and clean food. Mandated medicine versus medical freedom. Insiders versus outsiders, agent of change. And the real decision is, do you want this past, a bleak past, or the future, which is what Shiva for Senate is? We are the future. We are the inventors, the scientists, the working people. They are the past. That's how simple this choice is. So that's...
We're excited about your campaign, and we encourage, and I've already donated to your campaign and will continue any way that I can. And I think Massachusetts has a very clear choice, and it's either the swamp or fresh blood.
Exactly.
I have a couple of questions I want to ask you. I think that your listeners need to know that there has been some charges leveled against you that you need to address. And one of which is that you have been accused by Robert Kennedy as being a vaccination company, that you create vaccines. Are you into producing vaccines?
No, Pastor Broden. I have a company. In fact, I have 3 organizations I run. One of them is called CytoSolve, CYTOSOLVE. Very transparent, everything we're up there. CytoSolve is a technology. It's another invention I created, like email, which is a technology that mathematically, basically we use the computer to model chemical reactions. Chemical reactions are what make up molecular pathways. Molecular pathways are what make up different diseases in the body. Like, so if you look at your cell, it's like a big reaction of chemical reaction. So what we have the capability to do is, if you take something like Alzheimer's, if you take something like osteoarthritis, we can look all at the literature in a body of work, extract out those chemical reactions, connect them together, and mathematically build models of a particular disease on the computer. And so what we do is it's software. So people can use our software. All of our customers that today use us are natural product companies, Juice Plus, doTERRA, companies who have innovative companies who really want to do truth. There's a lot of garbage also in the natural medicines world, snake oil. Now, when we started, we had to prove ourselves, right? So I did this at MIT. We had a company called Pfizer, who the innovation group was spun off, and they really wanted to see if they could use our models for modeling lupus. By the way, this means we can avoid animal testing. Lupus is an autoimmune disease. And then after we started working with them, all the leadership disappeared and they reneged. But we put their logo up there. We haven't hidden it. There's all the logos are up there. All the people I've worked with, I'm very proud of that. We do not make vaccines. We make mathematical models. In fact, I just published a paper. We just came out after 5 years with a group of people where we showed how our technology can be used for detecting toxicity. So if you look at the drug pipeline, Pastor Broden, it's a long pipeline. Even building, any of these natural products, the drug pipeline, you first discover something, you test in a test tube, then you kill animals. Then after that, then you have to go get FDA approval to go test on humans. It's about a 13, 15-year process. What we said with or if you look at natural products where people throw stuff together, you buy at Whole Foods, no one really knows if the stuff works. So
this is a false charge that you are a vaccine company.
It's such a atrocious false charge. It goes against it's not only a false charge, but it goes against my entire history. I grew up as a poor kid in India. My grandparents were village farmers. My grandmother practiced traditional systems of medicine. My entire life has actually been in natural medicine. I mean, you can ask Michelle, when we go to Whole Foods, where do I spend my time, Michelle?
In the aisle with all of the nutrient supplements.
I'm probably in there. She can't find me. Ask any. I'm always there. I know every supplement. I've been like this since I was a kid. I know different herbs. So when I saw my grandmother heal people, I was very interested in natural medicines. So Cytosolve to me is a big hallmark. To call that a vaccine maker is disgusting. It's absolutely the biggest lie that you could even ever make.
Well, this is out there, and I'm glad you're addressing it because people need to know that these are false charges that have been leveled against you. This is one among many. Here's another that I'd ask that you would speak to tonight for those who are listening for the first time. You are being charged with working with Bill and Hillary Clinton, that you made your fortune by working in cahoots with them in advancing their agenda.
Yeah, it's one of the most. This is like Hitler. Someone that looks like Bobby Kennedy's been reading Hitler. Say the lie and keep repeating it over and over again. I have never worked with them. If anything, around 1992, 1993, I did my master's at MIT in '89 at the Media Lab in scientific visualization. Then I did another master's in applied mechanics at MIT in 1990. And starting in 1990, Pastor Broden, I started my PhD work at MIT in a very cool program, an interdepartmental program called Information Cybernetics. And what I was doing was figuring out a whole technology platform I was building to analyze any pattern. Remember, I may have shared my grandmother could look at your face, look at the patterns and detect different diseases in your body. So I was designing I'm a mathematician at heart, a technology where I could look at a wave signal or a handwriting pattern or a document and analyze it using a common platform. So that's what I was working on. And around that time, as the web took off, I got invited, the only graduate student, because people had heard about my work, to participate in a contest that the National Institute of Standards and the Executive Office of the White House was doing, because around 1993, Pastor Broden, is when email went out of the office environment. I created email in '78, but up until '93, email was used in the office environment. In '93, people may remember the World Wide Web came and email became a consumer application. So the White House was getting lots of inbound email. And the way the White House would handle it is read them by hand and sort them. And I was fortunate to be called to participate in this contest. We got given a set of emails and we had to categorize them. Well, I won it. And that's it. And it was a big honor. In fact, I won what was called one of the Lemelson MIT Awards for that. It's out there in the Christian Science Monitor. It was a huge honor for me and my family and MIT. And then
so again, another false accusation.
Completely.
Misrepresenting that as being a person who actually worked for the Clintons. You were participating in a contest and you won it. Here's another one.
I think one of the important things about that, it is basically saying that I helped with Hillary's emails to basically attack, my Republican base. Saying, in fact, I was the one who I was asked to give an expert interview to the New York Times. Everyone can find it, where I said, this woman should be thrown in jail. And what she did with their email server was it was done for deniability. In fact, there's a book up there, Future of Email, where I talk about it. But the way
Right.
Robert Kennedy has set it up to say, I'm in cahoots with Hillary Clinton. He's the one who's in cahoots. He voted for her 3 times, endorsed her 3 times.
And that's all on the internet. You can look that up and
Yeah.
find out that he endorsed her 3 times. But let's talk about email, because that's another controversy that he is leveling against you, that you are claiming to be the creator of email. And he is saying that's a false claim and that you're lying to the public.
Yeah, the bottom line is I invented email as a 14-year-old kid. It wasn't done at MIT. I invented email when I converted the old-fashioned interoffice mail system into its electronic form, 50,000 lines of code. And if everyone wants to go to inventorofemail.com or whoinventedemail.com, they can see it. It's black and white. It's not even a gray issue. Not only did I write all the code to convert all those features, but I was a guy who named it email. And I got the first US copyright at a time when that was the only way to protect software inventions, period. Now, I never was, I didn't have Bill Gates' parents to do PR. It was only 30 years later when my dear mom was dying of a horrible disease called pulmonary fibrosis. She had beautifully saved all this in a small Samsonite suitcase. The editor of Time magazine came, and he basically was the only guy who reviewed all the materials, and he said, this guy invented email. This was a technology editor of Time magazine, and he wrote an article called "The Man Who Invented Email." And that led to this going into the Smithsonian. And when it went into the Smithsonian is when you have this firefight start. But the facts are that I invented the first email system. And if anyone wants to go read about it, they should go do that. You can go to whoinventedemail.com. But I wrote all the code, called it email, have the first copyright. In fact, as Dr. Michelson, who's my mentor, who's still alive, says, this isn't even a gray area. It's black and white that I created it. And maybe that's what it is. It's black and white. That's what the problem is, and this is, if people want to go, here's the article in Time. It says, a man who invented email. Okay. And by the way, this was the only journalist who went through all the material, and you can read more about it. You can, if you want, it's all out there, and people can go to whoinventedemail.com. Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy is what?
Right. We need to address. I'm glad you addressed it, because it's out there, and people are saying that they can't trust you because Robert Kennedy saying that you're a liar. Now, you've debunked most of that, but here's another, and one that you need to address, and that is, we know Bill Gates has a foundation, and his foundation is pushing vaccines. In fact, he is responsible for pushing the idea of global vaccination and doing it nationally here in America. And Kennedy is tying you to that foundation and to Bill Gates' agenda for national, global vaccination. You need to address that.
Yeah, so here's the bottom line. Let's look at the facts again. The bottom line is Robert Kennedy is the one who said he's for vaccination. And just to be clear, we should probably just pull it up for everyone. He's the one who's made it emphatically clear. I'll use the word emphatically clear that he is pro-vaccine. And just to be clear, if everyone wants to go to the site, which everyone should go to, it's a beautifully well done site by our volunteers called rfkexposed.com. And this debunks all of his lies with the facts. And let me just play this for everyone. We'll really find out who is pro-vaccine.
Minister Farrakhan has asked me to address the issue of vaccines and African American and vaccine safety. I want to start out by saying this, and I want to say it emphatically. I am pro-vaccine. I've always been fiercely pro-vaccine. I had all 6 of my children vaccinated, and I believe that we ought to have policies that encourage full vaccination for all Americans.
All right, so that's Robert Kennedy. Okay, that's in his words. If anything, my position on vaccines is we need to go beyond vax, anti-vax. None of this should even be in the government, Pastor Broden. His first uncle, John Kennedy, is the one who instituted the National Vaccine Act in 1962. And then after they saw vaccine injuries, his next uncle, Teddy Kennedy, the illustrious Teddy Kennedy, he's the one who implemented the National Vaccine Injury Program. He was a sponsor of the bill with Waxman and Hatch, shoved that through.
Did you say the infamous?
The infamous, yeah.
Okay, I thought you said infamous.
Yeah, the infamous Teddy Kennedy, who, by the way, Chappaquiddick, and still the guy gets to be senator. If you or I did that, we'd never even come close to that. So it's quite extraordinary.
You'll be in jail today.
Yeah, we'd be in jail. We'd probably have the electric chair, okay? worse than that, but he got to be senator. That's what the deep state Kennedys are. And everyone should really think about this. Now, he implemented the National Vaccine Injury Program, which created the vaccine courts. Kennedy A, JFK created the National Vaccine Act. It was failing miserably. People are getting injured because they had a one-size-fit-all model. And then his other brother implemented the National Vaccine Injury Program. And then instead of getting rid of it, Bobby Kennedy, by the way, everyone should listen to the video. The Kennedy cult members, they said, oh, that's just a little part of the video. Well, listen to the whole thing. He repeats it again in the end. And in the middle, he says he's for vaccine safety, where we should create another government entity within the government. Bigger government. My goal is me and Bobby Kennedy have a big difference. Big difference. There's no unity here. There is a clear division that I want to remove all of it, Pastor Broden. We should take it all down. I'm a systems biologist. I'm the guy who actually does bottoms-up understanding. I've been doing this all my life in health and well-being. And as a biological engineer, my position is that these systems are too complex. Medicine should be decentralized. There's no one-size-fit-all. If you want to give your kid vaccines, go for it. But I'm not going to give it to my kid. Don't force me. I'm going to rely on natural medicines and foods. And
you represent cleaning of the swamp. And that's what most people are wanting. They want to see Washington, D.C. be different and to change out the current corruption that is evident there today. And as you are running, you're bringing a whole new philosophy, a whole new way of doing, I think, governance. I like your concept of truth, freedom, and health. Would you define that a little further for your listeners today? What is that? That's the platform that you're running on. Truth, freedom, and health.
Yeah, and Michelle was saying, look, we've been having to unfortunately be distracted by all this Kennedy big lies, but we have to defend ourselves. But let's not forget what our goal is. Our goal is truth, freedom, and health. And what do we mean by that? And, this sounds simple, but it's been sort of my life's journey and really trying to understand these pieces, Dr. Broden, from a systems scientist standpoint. That's what I do, system science. And what you realize is that we have these sort of three, divergent groups of people. You have people into health, right? And you can see it in Western Mass, all the way people in Western Mass, people do yoga and they go to the ashrams, they have their guru and they eat well and they eat their raw food. They wear their yoga outfits, nice people, but they live in their little bubbles and they don't want to talk politics. Oh, I don't talk politics. That's too difficult. It hurts my head. I'm not into that. Right. That's one world. Right. Then you have the other people into freedom, right? 2A people, gun rights, First Amendment, etc. And they don't want to talk about health. Okay. And then you have your other group, the people who are the scientists. Well, I do science. I'm a nerd. I do engineering. I don't care about 2A, 1A. I don't care about taking care of my body. These three worlds have been separated. And my view is that you can't just be a yogi sitting under a tree or meditating in contemplation somewhere without participating in the real world and fighting for freedom, nor can you be just talking about your gun rights and that, forgetting that you also have to discern truth and find out what truth is. We can't just be following one person or the other. So the platform for truth, freedom, and health, it's a very powerful platform. And, I do a lot of art, Pastor Broden, and when you remove all the layers, you find this beautiful paradigm here. And what the paradigm says is, let's start with freedom. I mean, you can start anywhere here in this triangle. But if you start with freedom, you realize that we must have freedom is the essential basis of being human. From a spiritual perspective, if you read all the great, quote unquote, the liberal works, the truly liberal works, you find out that there is a human being and there's God. And the goal was to remove all those layers for us to connect directly with our creator. This is my sort of view on this. And the way that you were supposed to do that was, I have a dream to pursue something in my life and nothing was supposed to stand in that way. So I could have a direct connection to my creator. That's ultimately what freedom is. And that freedom in the physical world emerges the freedom of the discourse, the freedom of speech, the freedom of, having debates and finding out what's real. And again, in the world here, it emerges through that freedom. We can go two ways. One is to practice a scientific method where we ask sincere questions. Why does an apple fall? And you come up with a guess, a hypothesis. Then you do experiments. You get the data. You debate if your data is correct or not. And then you say, oh, I think it's because of this model, the force of the earth. And the apple follows a formula, m times m1 times over r squared times the, this kind of stuff. And then you work on it and you say, oh, I've come up with a law. Well, that's the truth can emerge if you can have freedom. to do the scientific method. Now, if you can't do freedom,
Let you stop there and tell us what is the scientific method, because we are faced with what is called scientism versus the scientific method. Zetetic, I think, is the scientific method, is it?
yeah. So let's talk about that. So if you have freedom is a basis of practicing scientific method. If you don't have freedom, you go to something else. I call it scientific consensus. Okay. So what is a scientific method?
That's different from truth.
That's different from truth. It's basically saying, so you could have 97% of the people who believe that the sun goes around the earth. Okay. And one guy has data showing it's not true. Just one guy, 1 out of 1,000 people, 1 person out of 1,000 has data saying that's not true. The earth goes around the sun. But if you follow the path of scientific consensus, then 999 people shun down the guy who actually has data. That's what's beautiful about science. Now, when you practice a scientific method, I like to quote Richard Feynman. He has a great whiteboard talk. The Feynman lectures on physics are some of the most amazing lectures. But Richard Feynman said this, and he does it with his New York accent. He goes, look, you make a guess. It's called a hypothesis. And then you make this guess. That's what the scientific method begins. You actually starts with an observation. You see an apple fall from the tree, and you say, wow, why does that occur? And you make a guess. You think, I think there's something called gravity. So that's a guess. Mm-hmm. And you describe the gravitational force. And then you have an observation, you make a guess, and then you design an experiment. Well, how are you going to measure that? Well, I'm going to take an apple and drop it at different heights. And then you do these experiments and you gather data. And once you gather that data, you may put it in some spreadsheet, and you may draw a curve. You say, oh, mass of 1, mass of 2 times the radius squared. You draw a curve and you try to say, oh, that curve matches some formula like this. Force is equal to some gravitational constant times m1 times m2 over r squared. That's called a model. So you mine the data, you create a model. And then you say, wow, I have this model. Let me test it on different size apples. And you test. And over time, you know what? Your model matches. No one can refute your law. Okay? So right. That's the scientific method. It is a very humbling method because you go into the darkness, you make a guess, you test, and as Richard Feynman said, it doesn't matter how good looking you are, how much inheritance you have, whether your name is Kennedy or not. If your experiments don't match with your model, you're wrong. It doesn't matter. That's a scientific method. Now, where we're at today is you suppress freedom, you cut and copy stuff. Oh, he's a vaccine maker. Oh, he must be. It's like the witches, from the old Monty Python stuff. She's a witch. She's a witch, right? Yes, he's in cahoots with Bill Gates. And then you get into what's called consensus, scientific consensus. Oh, he must be a vaccine maker. Oh, climate change, the Arctic ice is melting, right? So that becomes consensus. Oh, gun violence occurs because of guns. You don't do the systems analysis. And people go to my website, truthfreedomhealth.com. I do these beautiful, really cool videos explaining from a system standpoint. So that's why freedom is so important, Pastor Broden, because with real freedom, you get to practice the scientific method. Without freedom, we go down to the path of scientific consensus. And this could be on any issue. Is Shiva a vaccine maker? So you have enough people pummeling people, and people believe that.
Yeah, we saw this working its way out in the public square here recently with hydroxychloroquine. There's been the consensus of certain experts is that it doesn't work. But we have hard truth data, the scientific method that shows that it's working. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. In fact, I did
truth has been eliminated out of the process.
Yeah, I did a whole systems biology presentation where we very, very objectively looked at vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin A, hydroxychloroquine. In fact, I just did remdesivir. And when you go to a systems analysis, that's what Cytosolve allows us to do. Cytosolve is this technology with, this, I don't even want to start cursing at him, sorry, but called it a vaccine maker, okay? But that technology allows us to model pathways, and we showed clearly hydroxychloroquine. It inhibits glycosylation, which is how the virus gets in. It stops the virus replication process in 3 ways. It stops RNA replication, it stops the assembly and the transport, and hydroxychloroquine also stops the cytokine storm. Now, it has side effects, but we know that. But it does hit the viral pathway in multiple areas. Remdesivir only does one thing. Remdesivir in that multi-process thing only stops the RNA replication. And the danger with remdesivir is it can, if the virus mutates, it's useless, and it has 74% adverse effects. Okay? Vitamin D, I compared it objectively. Vitamin D is an antimicrobial. It hits one of those pathways. You combine a vitamin D and C. But anyway, if you really want to practice science, we can get to it. Or we can practice.
No, it's a part of your model. It's a part of your platform.
Yeah.
And people need to understand that it's a reason why it's in that platform. Truth, freedom, and health.
Right. And now
Truth is absolutely essential to the process.
Yeah,
And right now, truth is being compromised for consensus and being thrown out the window. And you're saying you're going to fight for that. And when you get in the Senate, that's going to be part of your reason why you're there, is to make sure that truth is represented.
And it's very specific. So if we go with freedom, how do we get to freedom? Well, right now, 5 major companies, Pastor Broden, own the platform of freedom: Google and Facebook, and the 3 major physical telecommunications providers: Vodafone, AT&T, and Verizon. I mean, if they want to shut us down today, they could shut us off for the other. So in order to get to truth, you have to have freedom. Well, how do we get to freedom? We have to be able to have communications. And the solution I have for that is a Digital Rights Act. It's up on the website, the Digital Rights Act. What that says is we need to bring the Postal Service out of the dark ages. They thought they were created just for transacting postal mail. They were actually created by the founders to protect the First Amendment, and they should be providing a platform, the equivalent of Gmail, the equivalent of YouTube, the equivalent of Facebook. And by the way, the Postal Service protected by police force. If anyone opens your mail, it's 22 years, a 20-year sentence in prison. So I have an actual program to protect freedom.
That's radical. I mean, what you're talking about is radical. It makes sense, and it ought to be, especially now when we have those who are censoring, particularly the conservative movement, and the conservative voice is being censored by those other platforms. It makes sense that the post office needs to take over and provide a service to the public.
So that's
and by the way, what you're talking about is activating and utilizing what our founding fathers have given to us, which is a constitution that protects those rights, our First Amendment rights, and it gives us, it operates on what is called unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and it makes the Constitution work right. So that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, look, the founders of the country, by the way, they weren't lawyers and lobbyists. Washington was a surveyor. You had Jefferson, who was an architect. You had Franklin was everything. They saw 300 years ahead, like I saw many, many years ahead when I created that first email system as a 14-year-old kid. But the point is, freedom is essential. And I have a program how we can get back our freedom, Digital Rights Act. Once we have that, now we can start going to truth. How do we get to truth? Well, you can have freedom, but if the scientific academic establishment itself has become corrupt, which it has, because you have academia now is the oldest profession in the world. That's what it's become. It's pay-to-play science. That occurred starting in 1940s, where we got rid of the small scientists, the small inventors, like the kid inventing email, where innovation occurred at the edges. And then we centralized it after the Manhattan Project, after Sputnik went up. We created big science, big academia. And we created the NIH, which went from $100 million institute to $20 billion institute. Massive scientific establishments, which doled out money to big scientists, big academia. So what science became the military-industrial academic complex. That's what science became. And we as human beings, and Eisenhower talked about this after in his last farewell speech. And he was a Republican. And then Fulbright talked about it in the famous speech in 1970. He coined the term military-industrial academic complex. So what happened with academia is pay to play. It's pay to play science. And evidence is no longer relevant. And we don't even ask anyone, can anyone right now download me on an Excel spreadsheet, the climate data? Can we all, as citizens, find out all the data, the temperature data? We can't. So what's happened is science has fundamentally become pay-to-play science. You pay academia enough, they'll write, yes, everything in the Arctic is going to melt. Yes, guns cause violence. And I can go on and on into this, but the bottom line is this. I have a solution for that. Citizens Science Act. What that means is when we fund any research in any federally funded institution, my tax dollars are yours, You know who owns that data, Pastor Broden? You and I own it. It's our data. So what that means is, this is how the academics manipulate data. They take money for some vaccine project or some, and by the way, I know all this as an insider. I've seen this happen. They take the data, they get $10 million, whatever, from an NIH grant. They do the research, then they publish a paper. Remember how you go up in academia to become a tenured professor? You publish, publish, publish. You keep away all your competition, and you get other people to say how great your work is. It's an insider's game. Well, they can manipulate the data. Well, my view is when they do an experiment with my tax dollars, you know where it goes? Up to the cloud. I can see what experiment they did. I can download it because there's a lot of smart people in this world. I want a full transparency. Where is the climate change data? If you look at the climate change data, for example, the definition of evidence in science is unambiguous predictions. That's what the definition is. That means when Newton's equation says an apple falls from the tree, you can exactly predict without ambiguity when it will hit the earth, right? It's perfect. There's not one Newton Formula 1 which says the apple when it falls will hang at 2 feet, suspend in the air, and another one says 3 feet, no, it says predictably. Well, if you go read the IPCC report, they have 40 different models for how much ice will melt on the Arctic. That's not evidence. That's called indeterminacy. So we have manipulated science to become indeterminacy. Evidence is not even valued. So what we need to do is Citizen Science Act. That data is my data, your data. We can do our own research. Fine, you want to run an experiment? Put it up on the cloud. The day it's done, it's a federal crime if you don't do it. You can't hold on to the data and massage it to fit some curve that you want to fit. Citizen Science Act.
That's a wonderful idea right now. Those who are creating vaccines have a right to take out patents on them and own them. So they use tax dollars to do all of the research.
Yep.
And that's our research being done with our money, and then they take out patents on it. That's why the Fauci and Deborah are pushing vaccinations right now, because their friends got the patents on it.
And the Clintons and the Gateses. Let's not forget the Clintons. The Clintons, you know, go look at their page. Hillary Clinton, she ran on a pro-vaccine mandate program. Her running mate in 2016 got the state of Virginia to vaccinate, mandatory vaccination, high school kids, high school women with the HPV vaccine. The Clinton Kane ticket, who Robbie Kennedy endorsed. Okay. In fact, he wrote in the previous year, endorsed her, and he wrote a beautiful article, him and the two Kennedys, saying how she's against pharma. Well, she got the most amount of pharma contributions. So we can't forget this. So I've attacked Gates. I've attacked the CDC. I was the one who led this whole wave for FireFauci. No one had the integrity to go after Fauci because I'm an MIT PhD. I've done the work. Then Johnny come latelys came to hijack the movement. But the bottom line,
I remember when you did it. I jumped right on the bandwagon when you started hashtag FireFauci, because Fauci has been the problem here with this whole COVID-19 and the shutting down the economy. But I think your platform is excellent. It needs to be
third one.
We need to put it out there and let people hear it.
It's out for truth, freedom, and health. So I think the important thing is, Pastor Broden, the words truth, freedom, and health, it's not just a slogan. It has meat to it and depth to it. The last piece is health, which you know about with the GPOs and the PBMs and the middlemen.
Right.
Our goal is personalized medicine, the right medicine for the right person at the right time. So if people, for example, literally go to the website there, and you see when you literally go to the website, you'll see right on the website, this is the essence of our movement. It clearly states here, let me bring it up here. It clearly states, if you go right here to the front of the movement here, to the bus, by the way, it's called Get on the Bus. You'll see that it has truth, freedom, and health right here. And as I mentioned before, one of the important things is when people support the campaign, my goal is to teach you systems thinking. Because once you learn the principles of systems, you can apply it to your body, and you actually see that these forces of transport, conversion, and storage, which are the forces that help you determine your system state, which is where your body wants to be. And that's why when I started this, I said it's all about immune health. Your body likes to be at a certain position. When you distress your body, that's what the black dot is. But if you bring your body back to you with the right foods and right supplements and right exercise, you maintain health. So the real issue here is for people to understand that their body is a system, Pastor Broden, and we can do that. So health, in my view, is it can't be top-down medicine. Top-down medicine is John F. Kennedy thinks the government should own vaccines. Then his brother thinks there should be a vaccine court. Then this guy, Bobby Kennedy, thinks that the government should be involved in vaccine safety. No, all of it should go away. This health should be owned by you and me, whether I want to eat dirt, whether I want to eat an apple, whether I want to take supplements, whether I want to vaccinate. That's up to the individual. It's up to the unique individual to decide. That's called true freedom. Not saying a few set of people should determine it. So our Health Rights Act, which I've said in there, and I've written it, it's in there. It's saying we need to take away the 1962 Act, take it all down. John Kennedy's Act, Ted Kennedy's Act, and get Bobby Kennedy out of this movement. As you said, we need to dump Bobby Kennedy. Now, one of the things I want to share with you that's quite interesting, I've shared, Pastor Broden, when you were talking to me about Cytosolve, we talked about systems biology. I'm considered one of the leading experts in the field. Everything I do is looking at systems. When you talked about hydrochloroquine, et cetera. I've been getting some very, very, very shocking reports that a professor here was found shot dead, executed, it looks like. We don't know. But his name is Bing Liu. He's a research assistant professor. If you look here, he, like me, is a computational modeling and analysis of biological systems expert. There's very few of us around, and he was doing stuff on COVID. And he was apparently getting very close to understanding the mechanisms, which is what I've been sharing with people. Now, I believe he may have also been one of my students when I used to teach during the summer at MIT, between MIT and Singapore. I created the systems biology course at MIT. MIT had a relationship with Singapore, and we used to teach that. He's around 20 years younger, so it's very weird for me to see this. Some people have said is a deep state sending you a signal. Because as you know, Cytosolve is a technology. It's a systems biology technology where we can actually understand what works and what doesn't. And that's why when Bobby Kennedy called me a vaccine maker, if anything, if any vaccine maker wants to come to me, I will give you my technology to use at no cost. So we can figure out if the vaccine combinations, what they do at the molecular level. And what's interesting is Bing Liu, and by the way, there's very few computational systems biologists in the world. It's a new field. I was one of the pioneers of it. And the fact that he got shot dead. So I've had a lot of people say, Shiva, you should start getting security. Now, I don't know if that's a signal for me. And I'm not, Wikipedia suddenly calls me a conspiracy theorist, but it's really awful to see this happen. And
yes.
It's really interesting. A scientist, not just a scientist, a computational systems biologist, one of my own equivalent colleagues in the field getting executed or shot, or they said it was a murder-suicide. It's very, very weird. And everyone I've talked about.
I tell you, you're messing with somebody's pocketbook. There's a lot of money to be made on vaccine. Bill Gates is in it for the money. And they're talking about vaccinating the entire world with this COVID-19 vaccine. And if he was out looking at systems and how that COVID-19 system works, and you said mechanism, what does that mean? And when you're doing an evaluation from a system biology point of view, you said it. What does that mean?
Yeah. So you're asking me what that means. So systems biology is
what does mechanism? You said the kid was on the verge of finding a mechanism connected with COVID-19. What does that mean?
So what mechanism means is that you're actually understanding how the ankle bone's connected to the foot bone, to put it simply. Okay. How molecule A reacts with molecule B to get, Jen, can we take that away? The thing, how molecule A reacts with molecule B to get molecule C. It's called pathways. That's what I do all day long. I get up 4 a.m. I'm looking at pathways, I'm analyzing them. That's what Cytosolve does. So that's how I was able to show a remdesivir works. So I can actually figure out with Cytosolve what works, what doesn't. So I don't know if this was a message to me, because I'm one of the few computational systems biologists talking about this, and I'm very public. So I've been getting a lot of very unfortunate reports out of this. My condolences go out to his family. He may have been one of my students, because in 2005, 6, and 7, and 8, I used to go back and forth to Singapore with my other advisor, and we set up the computational systems biology one of the main courses that was taught to graduate students, and he graduated in 2006 and 7. So this was quite weird when I heard about this.
Yeah. Well, well, you need to be on the watch for yourself and for your own safety. You need to be very precautious about that. No fear, no doubt. You keep moving your powerful voice, and that voice needs to be heard. And certainly your platform is one that is exciting to hear about. And it's certainly honesty is important. It's a critical part of your whole system. It's honesty and fairness and truth. You call it truth, freedom, and health. I love the title of it. I love the digital, what you call it, digital rights, digital rights.
Yep. Citizen Science Act.
Digital rights. Excellent. Well, I'm excited that you had a chance to answer a number of questions. Those who are casting disparaging remarks on you, lies, obviously. You have a chance to respond to that. And I think that's a good thing. At this point, what's your next step?
Well, the next step is, I think, look, last Friday, if people remember, Pastor Broden, I'm a very passionate person. I'm very transparent. I don't hide anything. Myself and a lot of my supporters are very upset at not only Mr. This Kennedy fellow, but also his global elite supporters who bow down to him, attacking me, calling me a vaccine maker, which is crazy. It could get me killed. A lot of my, people, I am the guy, by the way, created the Clean Food Certified program, just to let you know this. My whole life is health, health, health. Cytosol was created as a homage to my grandmother who would mix these medicines. I wanted to figure out the alchemy. That's what Cytosol is. I run another organization that people should be aware of called Systems Health. So I run 3 things that are all around health, and I'll take you to that just so everyone's clear here. So people understand my incredible dedication to natural medicine and well-being. This is the other institution I run that came out of my PhD work that I want to share with people. It was basically a way to understand the body as a system, and I created a institution out of that called Systems Health. People show to this. It's integrating Eastern and Western medicine. It says educating leaders to ignite a systems revolution. People can go here. I teach people Ayurveda and systems biology. I teach people Eastern medicine. People can get certified. So this is one of my very important other businesses. Here is Cytosolve, right? If people want to go see it. Cytosolve is a company that I created, which really, we have the picture of the pill. We actually understand molecular pathways. And then the other most important thing that I'm very, very proud of is that I clean food. If people go here, cleanfoodcertified.org, is I created the industry's first comprehensive standard for really clean food. You'll go to Whole Foods and you'll see a new logo out there, which is called Clean Food. I did this as a labor of love using the Cytosolve technology. If you see these seals, Clean Certified and Certified Raw, it's a very powerful new seal. That means that food has to be non-GMO. It has to be organic. It has to be, safe. It has to be high bioavailability. This is what clean is. I created the standard, and you can see these amazing products. So we help a lot of young entrepreneurs. There's a whole new way to, understand food. In addition, Pastor Broden, I'm the guy who actually exposed Monsanto. So when Bobby Kennedy says I'm a vaccine maker, all my people, my entire life since my grandmother has been based on this. So I gave Bobby Kennedy, I told him, look, you have 24 hours on Friday to apologize to me. And people thought I'm not going to do anything. Well, what I have here right now is a lawsuit that will be filed. And everyone listen carefully. This is a lawsuit that will be filed by end of day tomorrow against Robert F. Kennedy for defamation, slander, and libel. And by the way, any one of you who does this, I will also file it against you. And it will be swift, and it's so egregious. I have the best lawyers in the world. I won a defamation suit. People can go look at it. I was paid a substantial settlement, and all the 3 articles were forced to be removed. So I'm giving, I pray for Mr. Kennedy. I believe in a God. I hope he does. And I'm giving him a chance to, a path for redemption. And what? Okay. I give him a path for redemption, He has until end of day business tomorrow to take down that nonsense and give a public. So not only he has to take it down, Pastor Broden, he has to give a public apology. And all of you who are replicating his stuff, notice that is defamation, slander, and you will also get hit with this. But Mr. Kennedy, this is coming. And what's happened is the Kennedys think they can harass people, they can kill people, and they can get away with it because they are the Kennedys. And they think a guy like me is a nobody and you are nobodies. But this is ready to go and it will be filed tomorrow by 5 p.m. if Mr. Kennedy does not have the decency to give a public apology. And by the way, any one of you who have republished his articles, remember, I support freedom of speech, truthful speech. The First Amendment supports freedom of speech. But if you say lies and if they're malicious lies, which is what we're done. And by the way, Mr. Kennedy's nephew is running against me for U.S. Congress. So it was a smear campaign. He is pro-vaccine mandate, his nephew. Mr. Kennedy's pro-vaccine. Hillary Clinton is pro-vaccine. Gates is pro-vaccine. So this is it, everyone. So get the word out there that Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai does not do bluffs. 5 p.m., the hammer comes down. And anyone else who wants me to bring the hammer down, it's coming down on you. And it won't be pretty because you will have to go get your lawyers, and lawyers charge money. Okay? And I earned all my money the hard way. I didn't get an inheritance. Right. And I will use my hard-earned money on behalf of you. And by the way, Pastor Broden, it's a pretty substantial lawsuit. And any money I get from this, let me make it clear. Let me tell you where that money is going to go because we're going to win. It's going to go to build 10 integrative wellness centers in Massachusetts, not in the bougie areas, in places like Springfield, in places like Holyoke, in places like Dorchester, in places like Fitchburg, for everyday people where we can teach them how to boost the immune system. Because what they're, I'm going to
nice if you put one here in Dallas, Texas, but I think it's a nice thing that you're doing by announcing to them that this is a possibility and that you're giving them a way out. I mean, what a gentleman to do so. You didn't have to do this. You
I didn't have to
announce to them that you're giving them an opportunity to back out of their smear campaign and their defamation of your character and their libel against you. All of that. You're giving them an opportunity between now and tomorrow at 5 o'clock to offer a public
5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Right.
I spoke to my 83-year-old father, and he said, "Be kind, give them a chance. Mm-hmm. We believe in God, we believe in redemption, we believe sinners can do the right thing. That's a Christian tradition. It's a tradition of most great spiritual teachings. So we're giving them a chance. And any one of you who's out there who wants to promote those three lies, I will have to put down the hammer down on you because it's the right thing to do. You cannot defame my family, my grandmother, my great-grandparents who taught me what it meant for natural medicine. That's what my life has been about. And if anyone
it's a public apology, and to pull down those articles and those misrepresentations that are on the internet and across the public square.
Yes, you have to understand, when we sued Gawker Media, who called me all sorts of horrible names, a fraud and a liar and everything, not only did we win, Pastor Broden, but they were driven into bankruptcy. And the karma of this all was, this is why I believe there's a God. I was appointed the chairman of the bankruptcy committee after they said I didn't invent email. And not only that, they were forced, in the sale to Univision, the board of Univision said, you know what? This is too dangerous. These articles are horrible, calling this gentleman all these things. And they were all pulled down. And all the liberal little weenies ran around saying, oh, Shiva's against the First Amendment. No. If anything, I'm the guy who's out on the Boston Common fighting for free speech, 40 of us against 40,000 mob. I'm the biggest fighter for free speech. But I also say truthful speech, free speech. And if you want to say lies, get ready to drop the hammer. And it's not a pretty picture to get sued, okay? Because lawyers are sharks. And they will, unfortunately, that's the way it goes. So all of you who want to keep saying I'm a vaccine maker, there's a price to pay for lies, for big lies. We're not going to get Hitlers get away with this anymore. This is not a place for Hitlers anymore. So send the word out. And Pastor Broden, in all sincerity, I would really like you to say a prayer for these people.
Yeah, we want to do that.
Yeah.
Certainly do that. Let's take a moment and do that right now. We'll ask that those of us who are watching us on this platform, that you join us in agreeing that we'll have a positive outcome to this whole thing. Eternal God, we are grateful that you are involved in this whole process. We thank you for the message that you have given to us through Dr. Shiva, his truth and freedom and health platform. It makes sense for America right now. So many are trying to move us towards forced medicine and towards a socialistic type of medicine. But this man is stepping forward with a system and a way that will make sense for doing healthcare in America and providing the kind of truth and environment where freedom can truly operate. I pray now that you would get protection around him and his home and his family, protect him from any harm and danger. And then, Father, we ask that those who have leveled these false charges, lies about him being connected with Hillary Clinton, that he is started a vaccine company, that he's working under the authority of Bill Gates and pushing this deadly vaccine mandate that is being pushed upon America and the world. I pray that they would hear his offer tonight to withdraw these articles and to recant on their lies and apologize to him personally and publicly so that this lawsuit can end right now and will not have to go forward. We pray your protection, your guidance, your wisdom, and your insight as we move forward in this endeavor to provide the kind of information that Dr. Shiva is giving to us: truth, freedom, and health. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Broden. That was very beautiful.
All right. Keep fighting, man. Fight for truth.
Yes.
Push back against it. And we pray that Kennedy will respond and that he'll make a public apology to you and withdraw all of his articles and all of his slander from all of the platforms where he has published these things, for they're untrue and they're not fair to you and your campaign.
Yeah, and I also, it's not only Kennedy. Those of you who've been bamboozled and are cutting and pasting that, know that you too will be liable. So I want to let you know that this is also an opportunity for you to recant and send me a public apology. It's not going to just end with Kennedy. We're going to go after everyone who has continued to do this and been sheep and not been using their God-given brains that God gave them. And by the way, Pastor Broden, I've put my sweat and hard work, as everyone knows, Michelle knows.
Yes,
I get up at 4 a.m. I do these videos to educate people. If people go to truthfreedomhealth.com, there's tons of videos that I take my time to take all this complex science and make it accessible. That's a public service that I do. I don't need to do that. I do it because I was very fortunate to get this. And my grandmother said that medicine is supposed to be given away. It's not something you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to charge for. One of my uncles became a doctor. He came back to the village for her blessings. And she said, I will only give you blessings if you promise this, that if a poor person ever came and they couldn't afford you, will you do medical care? And he goes, yes. And then she gave him her blessings. So that's the background I come from. That small village in India where people had nothing, growing up in working class towns in New Jersey. So I've already made everything, Pastor Broden. So my Systems Health Institute, Cytosolve, Clean Food Certificate, they're always all around health.
The evidence is clear. The evidence is clear. And then your humility tonight. I think this is a humble expression on your part. You see, it's not out of arrogance. It's not out of anger. This is an opportunity for them to make right what is wrong. And I think you ought to stand up for your character and for what is truth. And this is not arrogance. This is humility in operation. And I appreciate that as a Christian and as a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. Humble is the way. And I think you're expressing that humility tonight by offering this opportunity for them to recant and withdraw these false accusations that they've made and leveled against you and your campaign and your character. God bless you and keep up the good fight.
Thank you, Pastor Broden. And to everyone out there, thank you again. It was great having Pastor Broden. Our campaign, again, is a global movement. It's a national movement. It's a local movement. It's all of it for truth, freedom, and health. And everyone go to Shiva for Senate. We need volunteers. You can get lawn signs. We have a very, very strong ground game. People should be excited about it. And I just want to walk, our supporters always want me to walk. I do a lot of stuff on the education side. So I just want to, on behalf of our amazing volunteers who are out there, and I think there's a grandmother who just sent me a note. I think, where is it? I think Catherine said, I'll call her, who wants to talk to me. She's from Dorchester, so I'm going to be calling her. But before I do that, I just want to let people know that if you go to the website that we have here, which is right up here, shivaforsenate.com, I have to plug this site because we do so much on the site. So first, if you know friends in Massachusetts, you have to be in Massachusetts, they can come here and they can pledge to vote for us. So anyone outside of Massachusetts, anyone that you know, tell them to go here and pledge to vote for us, okay? The other thing that people can do is obviously financially support our campaign. We don't take PAC money. We don't take money from any big corporations. Everything we do is donations from everyday people. This campaign is powered by working people. But when you support the campaign, as I've said, people get this really cool book called System and Revolution so you can understand system science. You also get access to this really cool program called Your Body, Your System. And as I mentioned, Your Body, Your System really helps you understand how your body is actually a system. And meaning that the dynamics of forces in your body, which determine this red dot, which I call your natural system state. The black dot, when you're tired, when you're not doing the right things, it's called a disturbance, right? This is when you're away from you, and it gives you a way to understand how foods and inputs. It's really an educational tool. Obviously, you should see your healthcare practitioner, but this is a tool that will help you understand how your body is a system. So people should take advantage of that, and people should go to shivaforsenate.com to do that, support the campaign. And by the way, if you can't afford that, 25, donate whatever you can, it's really a honor program. The other thing is we have achieved our goal with FireFauci. We're taking all your feedback, and we're going to be taking the next steps to get that to the President of the United States. And you can go through the site on the volunteer page. Those of you who want to volunteer, if you go right to the volunteer page, you can, we have pickup signs all over this state. If you need to pick up a lawn sign, look, we have places in Abington and we have them all over the state. We have amazing volunteers who are affording their homes where you can go pick up lawn signs. So we can not only save on postage, but you can meet people on and on and on. We have amazing volunteers where you can go pick up your lawn signs. So please take advantage of this. If you want to go pick them up, they're free. If you want to order them, we charge you something, but you can pick them up. We also have the amazing Truth, Freedom, Health videos that I encourage you to do. These were a labor of love that I did to really teach you about truth, freedom, and health. So as Pastor Broden said, I really can't allow anyone to attack the integrity of my work and what I stand for and my family. I will not allow it. And again, as I mentioned, Mr. Kennedy has until tomorrow at 5 p.m. or this will be filed. And also to those of you who are seeing other people call me a vaccine maker, that I'm in bed with the Clintons, it's just absolute big lies. And these were done because I exposed Robert Kennedy. And I pray for him, and everyone should pray for this fellow and pray for all of the cult members around him that they redeem themselves and don't attack a good person like me. But I'm a fighter. I will not take something beaten down like a dog or something. No way. It's not what my grandparents brought me up to do or believe in. And I'm sure you wouldn't do that either. But anyway, our movement, your movement is for truth, freedom, and health. I'm going to call Phaedra Andrew. Let me call her because she wanted to hear from me. This is someone just wrote to me. They wanted to talk to me. They said they'd be very happy if I called them. And if they didn't pick up, I have to call a different number. So we'll see. Hello, good evening. Oh, they're not picking up. So let me try this other number. So Catherine, if you're listening, I'm calling Pauline. And Pauline is from Dorchester, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston. It's a little bit late, 10:31. Hi, this is Shiva. How are you? Catherine said to call you. Yeah, I have you live. It's okay. And you can share with people, what you think about our campaign, etc. But this is Dr. Shiva. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Oh my God, you just surprised me. I have my headphones on. Give me 1 second.
Okay, sure. Take your time.
Okay. I was just listening to the Sean Hannity show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a live stream, so there's people listening here, if that's okay with you.
Oh, it's fine with me. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we have about
So
2,000, we have about 2,300 people live here.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, maybe you shouldn't have told me that, but it's okay.
Yeah. No, don't be nervous. Just, it's pretty transparent.
I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm good. I'm very confident about how I feel.
Okay.
So what was your question, Dr. Shiva?
Well, Catherine just said for me to call you and say hello, because she said you supported our campaign. So I was just wanting to say hello and thank you for all your support.
Sure. Well, I am a reformed Democrat. Well, I was a Democrat. Now I am a registered independent. And this all started for me when Trump was running for president, and I just saw, how bad the left was going. And how that is all going right now. It's obvious that politics and Big Pharma, Bill Gates, this is all due to what they're doing. I just think there's just a lot of bad deals going on here, and it's got to do with the deep state. And I'm also a big supporter of the Q movement. So I just have a lot of things going in my head right now.
Okay. Well, I think the most important thing is what you just shared. Our primary campaign is coming up September 1. The Republican establishment and the Democrat establishment are one. The only thing that's real is the people bottoms up. I'm running as a Republican, but the Republican Party actually hates me. So they're running some other guy just to stop me from getting the Republican nomination, but we're going to win. So any independent, by the way, anyone listening, independents can vote in the Republican primary because we got to win the Republican primary. Obviously, any Republican, any one of you who are Democrats, you can switch to independent and vote in the Republican primary. And you can switch back if you want. Yeah.
That's exactly why I registered as an independent, because I don't believe that every Democratic, person is a bad person, or that they sometimes have some good, conservative Democrats. Of course, they're very far and few in between right now, and it's hard to find one that I actually trust. This really is about trusting our government and the people taking back our constitutional rights, which I do believe that are being violated right now. And speaking with, I went to the, I did go to the rally, the protest the other day in Boston, and our main goal there is just to get back to work and expose people like Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates for what they're doing. This isn't China. This isn't Russia. This is the United States of America, and we do have rights, and they're being trampled on right now, and it's a scary thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're at a point in human history where people are recognizing that freedom is ultimately what the basis of all of this is. So the people who want to not fight for freedom, and then there's the people who want to accept, want to fight. And that's where it's really coming down to. So anyway, it was great speaking with you. And please make sure you contact the campaign. If you're talking to Catherine, oh, okay. Make sure you get a lawn sign. Yeah, and make sure you get a.
I'm ready to work with you, Dr.
Oh, okay.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Okay. Be well. Bye-bye. So anyway, guys, I'm not going to keep everyone holding up, but we have some important things coming up. A number of you have asked me to do more analysis with Cytosolve. So tomorrow I'm going to be sharing some really cool stuff with two different herbs, artemisinin and another herb that people wanted us to look at, which I'll be going over tomorrow. I'll also be sharing with you what happens when you take combinations of ingredients. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they can hurt you. We did a very cool project about 6 years ago, I was asked to speak at Walter Reed Medical Hospital. Someone said, how are 100-year-old folks surviving? The immune system is gold. Why is no one researching their blood? Exactly. What is in their blood that makes them strong? Well, part of it is if you have family and surroundings and you're happy, your immune system also creates antivirals. So one of the important things is that when you combine different things, it can be a positive effect. It can also have a negative effect. That's why when my grandmother learned to combine different ingredients, she knew there was an art to doing that. And with Cytosolve, that was one of my great things to create, was I wanted to figure out how I could use these computer models to figure out what kinds of things would create synergy, which means positive things, or toxicity. So about 6 years ago, I was asked to speak at Walter Reed Medical Hospital to understand. I gave a talk on Cytosolve, and the former Surgeon General of the Army, Eric Schumacher, had just funded the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, which is the organization, which is the one which looks at supplements and looked at are the ingredients on the bottles what they say they are. So I was asked to be an expert counsel to look at soldiers at that time were taking 5 different supplements for strength and for focus. They were taking caffeine and arginine and synephrine, which is bitter orange, and creatine and yohimbe. Okay. And when soldiers were combining these things, sometimes some of them would have adverse effects. And the issue was, how was that occurring? So eventually I participated to use Cytosolve to show how you could do these combinations. In fact, we just published a paper on it with a great team of people. It took us 5-6 years to do this. It takes a long time. So I'll be sharing that if you're interested, to show toxicities. Now, that capability could be used for vaccines. It could be used for pharmaceuticals. It could be used for nutraceuticals, functional foods. Ultimately, I want to make Cytosolve for you, so you could use it for you. Again, it's a piece of software. So we don't have to go kill animals. You don't have to take something and hurt yourself. That's what it is. I'm very proud of it. So I'll talk about that. And if you guys have other ideas, we'll talk about it. But we're running for U.S. Senate. We're running against a Kennedy. We're running against the deep state Kennedys. Massachusetts is the center of the deep state. So this is our movement for truth, freedom, and health. We have a clear, very clear guides. We have a clear focus: health rights, digital rights, and citizen science rights. So God bless to all of you. If there's any other questions, Jen, you have, I can take them. Otherwise, we'll have what we consider an early night. I think we went to bed at 2:30 in the morning. Jen, is there anything else you want to share? Are we missing anything? Is there anything else I want to go over? Okay, yeah, and by the way, those of you outside of the United States, if you want to take advantage of the tool, please feel free to go to yourbodyyoursystem.com, because you can't donate to a federal campaign, but you're welcome to go right to yourbodyyoursystem.com. You can get started now. You can go direct, and you can do the same thing directly right here. And by the way, we give scholarships. If you can't afford 20, you get up to a $20 scholarship. And we say here, we know people, there's economic distress to see honor system. Okay. Everyone's sort of on their own. So anyway, I wish everyone a good evening. We'll talk tomorrow. If people have ideas for any other videos I should do, please let me know. And we've gotten all the signatures to FireFauci, over 100,000. They're still growing. This is our campaign. This is your campaign. Let's win. Thank you, everyone. Be the light. Be well.